Harper constantly found herself shifting from one job to another, rarely staying in a position past her probation period. Ethan, on the other hand, was growing disheartened by the instability, as he had been relying on her income. One evening, after a tiring day at work, Ethan asked, "How are you doing?" Despite feeling drained and yearning for rest, he decided to engage in conversation with his wife. Harper's face brightened as she responded, "Actually, I start a new job tomorrow." Her hopeful smile brought a spark of optimism to Ethan. Perhaps this role would finally be the one where Harper would settle in for the long term. She explained that she would be working night shifts as a chef for a 24-hour food delivery service. The first few months passed quickly and smoothly. Harper appeared to enjoy her new job, and her income, especially with the extra pay for night shifts, grew stronger. This encouraged her to take on even more shifts, and soon her routine was set for over a year. Ethan was thrilled to see his wife so immersed in her work, but over time he began to notice something unusual. Harper started spending large sums of money on high-end items. Whenever he expressed surprise or questioned her about her earnings, she would brush him off with a smile, casually stating that she was making enough to cover her expenses. Ethan also observed how Harper seemed increasingly focused on her appearance. She frequented the gym, visited beauty parlors, and indulged in various cosmetic treatments. While Ethan was pleased by the changes, proudly sharing photos of them together on social media and basking in the envy of his friends, one day a friend jokingly remarked, "You got a young wife. Better watch out. Someone might try to steal her away." Ethan laughed it off and responded confidently, "I can handle it." The conversation shifted quickly, but soon after, another friend invited Ethan to a bachelor party. With a mischievous grin, the friend leaned in and whispered that it would be held at a strip club. Initially, Ethan hesitated, creating excuses to avoid attending, not wanting to stir any jealousy in Harper. However, after some persistent persuading, he reluctantly agreed. He chose to keep his plans from Harper. On the day of the party, Ethan left earlier than usual as Harper was also preparing for a night shift. He gave her a kiss on the cheek and headed out the door, all the while consumed by the unsettling thought that she might find out about his secret. Little did he know, fate had a different plan in mind for him. Ethan and his group shuffled into a dimly lit room bathed in neon lights. The majority of the patrons were men, gathered around scattered tables. Ethan felt like an awkward teenager stumbling across his parents' secret stash of forbidden materials. A wave of discomfort washed over him, but his friend, sensing his unease, tried to lift his spirits, saying, "Every guy needs to experience this kind of place at least once." "I'm married," Ethan replied, attempting to steer the conversation. "You're not married in here," his friend assured him with a reassuring slap on the back, clearly oblivious to Ethan's discomfort. The group found a table far from the stage. Just as performers began to enter, Ethan did his best to avert his gaze, but unexpectedly, the instigator of the evening nudged him roughly. "Check out the stage," he shouted, his voice drowned in the thunderous applause and loud music. Reluctantly, Ethan turned his attention to the stage, and what he saw froze him in place. Standing there in luxurious lingerie was none other than his wife, Harper. The world around him seemed to blur, and his eyes refused to believe what they were witnessing. It was Harper, moving gracefully, performing with a poise and confidence that Ethan had never imagined. His jaw dropped in disbelief as he struggled to grasp what was happening before him. The man at his table, equally shocked, turned away in silent solidarity, unwilling to watch the unfolding scene. But Ethan couldn't tear his eyes away. Though sitting at a considerable distance, he was sure Harper didn't see him. As he watched the men around him, their eyes fixated on her, a man at a nearby table gestured to a waitress, whispering something in her ear while indicating the stage. An unexplainable urgency seized Ethan, and he motioned for the waitress to come over. As the girl swayed her hips toward their table, Ethan asked, "What did he ask for?" The waitress glanced around before leaning in close, her voice a whisper. He requested the girl from the stage for a private room. Ethan's eyes darkened, and he turned to his friend for clarification on what a private room entailed. His friend hesitated, then reluctantly explained. The sorrow in his voice was palpable as he suggested, "You should leave, Ethan." But Ethan couldn't bring himself to walk away. He was determined to confront Harper and confront the situation head-on. He stayed put until she finished her performance and watched the man at the adjacent table rise and leave. Ethan followed him discreetly, staying hidden as he watched the man slip into a room. Minutes later, Harper appeared at the door and entered without hesitation. Ethan paused, torn between rushing in immediately or waiting for the situation to escalate. Being a large man, he had no problem breaking down a flimsy door if it came to that. He stepped into the room, only to find a scene straight out of a bad soap opera. The man was sitting on a small red couch, his pants around his ankles, while Harper knelt awkwardly between his legs. She froze, her eyes wide in shock when she saw Ethan standing there, his face burning with fury. Before he could react, a bouncer swiftly intervened, pinning him down. As onlookers stared, they escorted him out of the club, and one of the bouncers, eyeing him sympathetically, asked, "Is she your wife?" Ethan nodded grimly. The bouncer sighed heavily. "She's been working here for a while. Always claimed she was single. Never mentioned a family. But now I guess it's true." Ethan felt a deep, bitter sorrow, his heart heavy with the weight of his loss. Without a word, he turned and walked away, needing solitude more than anything. He didn't return home that night. By morning, he had ended his lease and within days, filed for divorce. Harper tried to reach out, calling him repeatedly, but eventually Ethan stopped answering. He couldn't bring himself to forgive her, and he no longer wanted to carry the burden of her tears. He moved on, settling down with someone his own age, building a life with her and welcoming a daughter into the world. Meanwhile, Harper faced the consequences of her actions. The man she had been caught with filed a formal complaint with the club, demanding compensation for emotional distress. As a result, Harper lost her job and plunged into debt, the realization of her mistakes sinking in with each passing day. She spent her nights crying in her small room, overwhelmed by the memories of how she had ruined her life. Unable to afford anything larger, she berated herself for chasing after quick wealth and betraying Ethan, who had only ever been kind to her. She had lost everything: her love, her family, her security. The man she had met after leaving Ethan seemed kind at first, but when she confided in him about her reason for leaving, he quickly turned cold and walked away, hurling cruel words. Now Harper wandered aimlessly, taking whatever job she could find to scrape by. Her former friends shunned her, and she realized with a painful clarity that she had given up everything that mattered. As the years went by, Ethan's life flourished. He found a fulfilling job, formed new friendships, and met someone who shared his dreams. Together, they built a life filled with love, trust, and a new family. Harper, though, could never completely escape the shadows of the past. She occasionally remembered the good times with Ethan, but life had moved on for both of them. They each carried the lessons learned from the past, and they both paid the price for their choices.